Welcome to another episode of the Deep Dive English podcast. My name is Sam.
My name is Anna.
And today Anna will be asking me some questions about improving your English.
Yes, because Sam, you are an English teacher. This is how we met. And you probably happened to meet a lot of people who struggled with many different problems and their English learning journey.
Yeah,
So,
I've met hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who have the goal of wanting to improve their English. And so, yeah, I've got a little bit of experience of helping those people. So maybe you're right.
so I will proceed with my first question. I have a little list in front of me.
Wow, okay.
So the first question is something that I really struggle with a lot, especially before I really started to speak a lot. How to overcome anxiety with speaking?
Okay, good question. People ask me this a lot, and it's a really important question actually because it doesn't really matter how good of an English speaker you are if you feel really nervous or even anxious when you're speaking English because you will forget everything and it will be really stressful and it won't be fun and you'll be focusing too much on your own thoughts rather than what the other person is saying, and then you'll realize, oh, I haven't been listening because I've been thinking about what I need to say next or all the mistakes I just made. And then you will feel stupid because you didn't understand the person. Then you'll have to say what, and then they'll say what, and you're in this awkward exchange, and you'll finish it, and you'll go home, and you'll say, wow, I suck at English. And that's probably not true. So becoming comfortable, I don't think people need to aim for confidence where they feel like I'm really confident in this conversation. First, just feel calm, just normal. A little bit of anxiety is not a problem. We can still perform with a little bit of anxiety and have conversations, but there are like a multiple ways of going about this. So first of all, you just need to get more comfortable like speaking English, and the first like step for this is just practicing speaking English by yourself. And the best way and easiest way to do this is just by reading out loud by yourself, because you don't feel like a weirdo kind of answering questions in your bedroom to a wall. That is a bit of a weird experience. I've done that and it is quite strange. So having a book or finding an article and just reading it out loud makes the whole process feel a little bit more normal. You don't feel like a strange person reading out loud in your bedroom by yourself. And this just gets you into the practice of actually speaking English out loud. What a lot of people do is they spend too much time reading and listening, which I still think is spectacular. It's like one of the best things that you can do for your English is increasing your comprehensible inputs. So you are just absorbing more and more English. This is really good. But if you want to start having conversations in English, you do need to start speaking English, especially when you get to an intermediate level. And that can be really scary. So, yeah, just getting into the practice of speaking English through reading out loud is a really good first step to kind of, yeah, start speaking English. Then you need to ascend. You need to go to step 2, which is speak to a real person. Some people recommend speaking to AI. And if you want to do a step 1.5, then go for it. Speak to AI. I have done it. It's a little bit weird. I'm not really a big fan of it. Have you done it before, Anna? Have you spoke to AI in English?
Only for a moment, but it was very awkward and there was a limit. I think that it was with some like more early models of AI with this like voice mode. And I think that there was a limit of probably like 5 minutes or something, which, before I warmed up myself, I already like was finishing the time. So no, my experience is like there's hardly any experience of mine, so I can't really tell.
Is this something that you would be interested in the future, speaking to AI, or do you prefer speaking to real people?
Well, I love speaking to real people, but I've been thinking of using AI actually. I've heard on some learning podcast on YouTube, someone saying that Claude has like this good tool that would give you some feedback on your speaking. So I've been meaning to try it myself for probably a couple of weeks so far, but I haven't tried yet. But I think I will. I think I will.
Okay. And what about speaking to a pet? Do you think this is maybe a safe space to practice speaking English to a real thing that's alive, which isn't AI? Do you think you could maybe ask your pet some questions, or maybe let's go over here? Do you want your dinner? Things like this. Do you think this would be a good
Yes, yeah,
step?
I think that talking to yourself, if you manage to overcome this weirdness, this weird feeling of, because we think in our head, like we kind of narrate our life and anyway, maybe not in words, but we have some thoughts. So if you have some time when you are alone and there's no one like listening to you, I think that it's good to just comment on your daily life a little. Sometimes if you're not in a hurry, if you have a little bit of mental space to do it, I think that talking to your pet, but also just commenting on what you're doing, um, I think that it helps. I think that it's very important just to make your mouth a little bit used to using another language, which is very different from using your native language.
Yeah. Narrating your life inside. I don't think you should be walking around the streets saying, now I'm going to cross the road and walk into the shop. People might think you're crazy. And I have heard a podcast before when they're talking about meditation, and they're saying that the only difference between, like, if you see someone walking down the street and they're talking to themselves and they're talking out loud, people go, well, that person's crazy. However, if they just listen to their thoughts, it's constantly going all day long, and it's basically the same thing, apart from that person is actually saying those words out loud and you're not. So, but you could do this at home, couldn't you?
You
You could.
can wear headphones, so people
Oh,
may
okay,
think
yeah,
that you
that's
are
a good
talking
idea.
on the phone.
Yeah, yeah. If you really want to practice more, then yeah, put some headphones in, pretend you're speaking to someone else. But yeah, narrating your life at home could be quite good. So, I'm going to go downstairs now. I'm going to start cooking my dinner. What am I going to have for dinner? Well, I've got some chicken in the fridge. I've got some vegetables that I need to eat up. This could be a really easy way to just start speaking English in a safe space. You're literally by yourself, or maybe the people that you live with. But the next stage is to, if you are skipping AI and animals and speaking to yourself, then the next kind of like step is to start speaking to real people. And the kind of like the main idea here is to find people or a person that you're comfortable speaking English to. So it's not really scary, and you're not standing in front of 50 people doing karaoke in English. This is a terrible idea, but maybe speaking with your partner, one of your friends, someone who else also is learning English that you already trust, that you know in your life, instead of going out there and finding people that you don't know, like a tutor or maybe a community. Maybe start small with people that you do know, that you trust already, that where you feel safe. So, for example, if I wanted to start learning French and my girlfriend also wanted to start learning French, this would be a good person just to practice speaking with. Maybe we would reinforce our mistakes, but we're not focusing on being perfect right now and creating perfect sentences. It's about just practicing speaking and getting going with our speaking. So finding someone that you trust, that you feel safe speaking with. Speaking with partners is quite difficult, or people you live with, because you also, most of the time, know each other's native language. And when it gets difficult, it's really easy just to kind of flip into your native language. And it's hard. And when our brain has an easy path and a hard path, it's very difficult to convince our brain to go for the hard path constantly. So lots of people have this intention of, oh, I'm going to start speaking English with my partner at home all the time. And they might do it for one day and it doesn't work. So I like to try and maybe do it in a fun way, where they might say, okay, we do it on a specific day. Like on Tuesdays, we speak in English, or
Yes.
or certain rooms in the house. In the kitchen, we only speak in English. And it can be quite fun because they might literally just step out the room to go and say something in their native language, but it does require a little bit more friction of just saying it
Mm,
in their native language, or doing activities like playing
yes.
a board game.
Yes, yes, this is what I did. So we bought a game. Can't remember the name now. I think it's Sleeping Gods. And during this game, we only communicate with each other in English. And we also extended it to other games, other board games that we played at home. Also, we started speaking only in English during our walks. When we sometimes go for small walks to the forest. So it takes half an hour up to 1 hour, maybe. And during these walks, we would also speak only in English. And yeah, it was for me, it was for myself just to get me used to speaking in English. But deciding on certain activities, or maybe during meals, or during even watching some series, or like having some relaxed time in the evening, I think that it would be great just to decide on, so you don't have to make this decision right now. I am going to speak in English, because to me it was really awkward, and I felt really uncomfortable if I had to ask my husband to speak in English, because I felt already really uncomfortable speaking in English, if it makes sense. So even adding this little friction of asking him to like make the decision right now we are going to speak in English, it was too much for me. I felt too shy for it, even in front of him. Yeah, I guess that maybe I was an extreme example,
Yeah.
but it helped. It helped a lot. Just having these activities to not to have to make this decision every now and then. Just have it mm, as a default.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are doing this with your partner or your friend, then remember that they might be feeling more anxious than you, and so try not to like laugh at them. Or obviously, if you're having fun, then it's okay. But why do people feel anxious about speaking English or communicating in English? So I've thought about this for a while, and I guess, and I also thought about my experience in Spain. Why was I anxious speaking Spanish to other people? It didn't really matter if it was native speakers or people also learning Spanish. I just didn't. I just felt nervous and anxious speaking Spanish because I knew I wasn't very good. And for some reason, I thought that if people thought that if they know that I'm not very good at Spanish, that means that X, Y, and Z. It could be that I'm not hardworking enough to learn Spanish. I'm stupid. I'm not smart enough. And each individual have a reason why they are kind of nervous about speaking English. So while I am going to give some practical tips of gaining confidence speaking English, it's also, an exercise that you can do by yourself on an individual basis of really think about why you are nervous about speaking English. And if you think about the worst case scenario, okay, I'm going to have this conversation in English. What is literally the worst case scenario of what your brain can think of? If it's something important like an interview, okay, you don't get the job. That's quite serious. But if it's just a normal conversation, the worst case scenario that your brain can think of is the person laughing at you and saying, "Oh, you're so bad at English." And first of all, if that happens, that's not the end of the world. Some people will be really mean, and there might be a 0.1% chance of that actually happening. Most people aren't going to say that. So it's very unlikely that that's going to happen. People aren't going to laugh at you. People aren't going to call you out. They're not going to, everyone look at this person. They suck at English. That's not going to happen. It might do, but it's a very, 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 very slim chance of happening. And if that does happen, you will survive and you'll get over it. But the point is, it's unlikely. People they might laugh a little bit if you make like a really funny, obvious mistake. But it's not the end of the world. Like it's okay. So
Mm.
it's also worth exploring the reasons why you feel nervous about speaking English and trying to kind of work with those and be okay with those. And then, yeah, once you do find kind of actually, Anna, why do you think that you felt nervous speaking English? Did you have those fears of not wanting to look stupid like I did in Spain?
Mm. So I had this experience from Polish school where you are really punished because of you when you make mistakes. So, and also I am a kind of perfectionist myself, and I always try to set high standards for myself, and I don't really accept like the outcome being below my possibilities, my capabilities, and I just felt like it was a failure if I make a lot of mistakes or if I like stagger. Is it a word? If I struggle with like, yeah, especially vocabulary. I had problems with vocabulary. I had problems with everything actually because I learned mostly from YouTube in the end, having this base of grammar before. Then I learned mostly from YouTube. So there are some serious gaps in my vocabulary still. And before I started speaking, I probably knew some vocabulary and some words, but I really struggled to put my thoughts into these words, and I knew that it will take a lot of time just to express myself. I didn't want people to wait for me or think that that I am not smart, that I am kind of stupid, that I can't speak properly, that maybe like my ideas so are very simple. I know that I'm very simple-minded, kind of. So yeah, I think that it's all about fear of judgment and like how people perceive us. And I was really afraid of people thinking not very well about myself. So yeah, it was difficult to overcome.
Yeah, and we don't need to like shame ourselves for thinking this way either. This is quite normal. Like we do generally have a fear of negative judgment, and the way that society is kind of like set up means that we're constantly like thinking about, oh, what does that person think of me, and stuff like this. But we don't need to make other people mean in our heads, especially if we don't know them. Why can't we just assume that they're going to be a nice person, and if they are a nice person, that's great, and if they're not a nice person, we can deal with that afterwards. But imagining that they're going to be mean and nasty before we even meet them um, doesn't actually serve anyone.
It's
So
It's funny because I didn't even think that they are mean. I wouldn't blame
mm,
them, but at the same time, I don't judge like people by these standards. And
yeah,
I think that I was much more lenient towards, and I am much more lenient towards like anyone else, but not to me.
that's
So
that's the key, isn't it? That usually we have a different kind of attitude towards other people compared to ourselves, and we are very lenient with other people. If someone started speaking English to me and they made a few mistakes, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't judge them negatively. Um, However, if I start speaking a second language and I make mistakes, I will criticize myself and say, "Oh, I made this mistake. I'm so stupid." And loads of people do this. But a good little rule to think about it is, how would you, if your one of your friends or your best friends said what you said in English, how would you respond to, and they were kind of like nervous about, or they were, not happy with the way that they expressed themselves? What would you say to them? And just use that compassionate voice to yourself rather than
mhm,
other people. So there's a
yeah,
few psychological tricks that you can play here of just being kind to yourself, being compassionate. Try to just expect that everyone is going to be kind instead of being like judgmental. I don't think a lot of people, even I know when I say that, I don't think this is a subconscious, like a conscious thing. I don't go into a situation when I'm speaking Spanish and go, this person's nasty, I've got to watch out because they're going to judge me. But we are thinking about the worst case scenario happening, or a bad case scenario where people do kind of laugh at us. So we kind of are saying that there is
conditioned a
there is a
little.
possibility that this person might be a mean person. Um, if you
Yeah,
know, without
but
being too personal.
I think that there are very like old, very like primal
Mm,
mechanisms in a work,
yeah,
because I think that it comes down to like us being like social creatures, and if your pack doesn't like you, if you do something and they don't accept you, you basically die. This is how it worked back then. And now, if people like don't like your English or you make some mistakes, you won't die by any means. Like it's not going to happen. So there's no, and also like there's no risk of any serious consequences of making any kind of mistake, really. And also, what I was meaning to say, mm, like there is only way the only way to improve is to practice. So you have to overcome it anyway if you want to improve, and it's always better to improve earlier than later. So yeah, like all the arguments are only for speaking. Even if you will never feel ready, really. So the earlier the better. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
find a safe place to practice. I think that's crucial, and trust yourself
Hmm.
and trust the
Yeah.
process.
And then after you have maybe had a few conversations with people that you really trust, then you have to go to the next level of being, you have to open yourself up and be vulnerable. And then maybe you need to expose yourself to different people. And that could be, I don't know, joining a speaking club or finding a speaking partner online, finding a tutor to have English lessons with. It could be joining an English community, and here you will find new people to speak with. And the first time that you speak with these people, you will probably be really nervous. And I remember the first time that I did a few things, like when I would speak in my seminars at university and I had to share my opinions. You know, the first few times I would do that, I'd literally be physically anxious. I could feel my hands sweating. The first time I recorded podcast episodes years ago, I would be physically anxious before the recording, and no one else is even here. Just me, or like me and someone else. Like the worst case scenario is me just saying, "Oh, sorry, can we do that bit again?" But I'd still be nervous, even after a few times. Now I'm not. I literally feel incredibly calm. I'm not anxious whatsoever. But if I went back into a seminar at university, I'd probably still be a little bit anxious because I haven't done that in a while. But the more that you do something and the more you prove to yourself that it's generally safe, then the more comfortable that you will feel. So that next step is exposing yourself to other people and being vulnerable and having conversations with other people. And it's okay if you're nervous. If you're incredibly nervous, then maybe give yourself a break and say, okay, not yet. But you have to keep trying, and a little bit of anxiety or just anxiety and just proving yourself to a few times that you can do it is is okay. Maybe doing it in a situation of like paying a tutor would be ideal, because the tutor mostly will probably be professional. They're not going to laugh at you. They're there to help you, and you can say to them, I'm nervous, and they should accommodate for you. And you just need to get through those first few times, and it will get easier over time. So, and I know that when you joined my community and you joined our group calls in there, you said that you were so nervous that you feel like you could faint. So maybe
Yes.
you could sort of walk us through that experience of the symptoms you were feeling. What did you feel like? And just the journey of kind of like that first few calls and where you are with your English now when you join something like a group call, for example.
Mm. Yeah. This is what you said. It's true. I really felt like extremely anxious. I felt like I could literally faint from stress. I was sweaty. I was like my hand shook. Uh, yeah, I was terribly stressed. I didn't like it at all. But the thing is that I decided to join literally because you said that it's a safe space to practice. So I thought, and I have very big fear of missing out. And once I set myself, my mind that, all right, this is a safe space. This is my chance. I can join. There is no risk. I can just join. If it doesn't work out, I can just leave. So I just set my mind that I am going to do it, and like there is no coming back from it. I just have to make myself, and I think that it didn't take long before I noticed that there is like nothing to be feared of, really. That everyone in there experienced the same anxiety and a kind of fear, and yeah, struggled with the same problems as I did. And like, I think that's, I can't really tell, but I think that's vaguely the level of English of people in there was also quite similar to, maybe not similar to mine, but yeah, I think that it wasn't much worse than anyone else, right?
Sure, yeah, yeah.
I can't really tell this one because like my emotions back then were like on such levels that I remember the anxiety, I remember the fear, I remember being like very shaky and sweaty, but I can't recall like specific like moments from then, like specific memories. Uh, but with time, and I would say quite quickly, I learned to be more curious about these calls and not really that anxious, because I just discovered that like it's really a safe place. Everyone is really nice to each other, and from my experience, it's the universal experience of people in your community. And I was also in Ben's community, and I also met other like English speakers, English learners. And I think that this is in general such an environment that everyone understands that everyone is anxious and everyone is nervous and everyone struggles to express themselves, and just learning to do it better with time, and just it's just a process that has to take time. So once you understand that you are in the same boat as everyone else, and all these feelings are so universal, I think that it brings a little bit of confidence and like more calm, that you are not alone in it. And like you can be vulnerable. It's a place where you can be vulnerable and still safe, and no one will hurt you in there. So I think that it was a great relief for me that I can take my time. That was brilliant that could just take my time, and people like waited until I found the right words to express what I wanted to say, or helped me a little if I needed. So it was, yeah, it was a very good experience that I can improve in my own pace in this friendly environment and very supportive environment, and go through it with other people together, like supporting each other. That was great. And with time, it's been almost 2 years, right, since I joined the community. I think
Yeah,
I joined
yeah,
in summer 2024.
yeah.
So
That's when
it's
I
been
started it. So yeah.
almost 2 years. And I can't tell when it happened specifically, but I think that probably after maybe 3, 4 months since I joined, I think that there was definitely more curiosity about people that I meet and what we are going to talk about in these calls, like compared to this anxiety or discomfort, or maybe even earlier. I think that it didn't take long for me to actually notice that I am much more comfortable than I expected in these calls, and yeah, that I am improving when I can join. I did join a lot. I joined a couple of times each week. So I could notice my progress, and it was very rewarding. And also, I started building some like real human connections with people, and recognize each other and be friends. And like, yeah, I discovered um, a whole new layer to it, or a whole new dimension of learning English, and yeah, really appreciate it. So right now, I am only curious who I am going to meet in these calls, what we are going to talk about. When I see some new faces, I'm not anxious at all. I just want to welcome them and just improve their experience, because I know how I can tell how they feel most of the time, because I've been there before.
Yeah, that's great. And you really mentioned like a fundamental idea of reducing anxiety, which is try to change the direction of the spotlight of instead of it pointing inside your brain and thinking too much about what you're going to say, what you did say, the mistakes you made. Just try to focus outward and focus on other people. And this is general advice for anxiety: is to focus outward rather than inward. And happens in conversations in English as well. So if you're in a conversation or a group call or group conversation, just really try to focus on what the other person is saying. Like speaking English is just communicating, and half of communicating is understanding what the other person is saying. So if you focus most of your attention on that and really try to understand what the person is saying and the ideas, and you can look at their body language, but focusing on other people rather than yourself is a really good way to reduce anxiety. And that's combined with focusing on the material, the topic of what you're talking about, is really good as well. So if you are talking about something that you're you're really interested in talking about, then you can be braver when you are kind of like a little bit nervous. So, for example, if I was at a talk and there's two people talking on stage, and there was a room of thousands of people there, and they asked, "Does anyone have any questions?" I would be nervous to ask a question because there's so many people listening. What if I say something stupid? What if I can't get my words out? I would be nervous. I just know I would be. However, if I was so curious about the topic, if I really wanted to ask the people on stage a question, I would be brave enough to be vulnerable and ask that question. So if you are in a space, if you are having conversations, if you are with people that genuinely interest you and the things that you're interested, if you're talking about the things that you're genuinely interested in, then you will be braver than what you think, because the curiosity overrides the
Mm-hmm.
feelings of nervousness.
Yeah, exactly. You doesn't think about your feelings if you are passionate about the topic, or at least interested in the topic, or you have like your own experience connected somehow to what you're talking about. Then you just focus on your like expressing your experience and your thoughts, and you don't think much about your feelings. Then you only realize that it was so good to talk about this, or maybe you realize that you could say something more, and you say it next time. So yeah, i would I would say that it's very different if you really follow the flow and don't really focus that much on your anxiety and focus outwards instead, as you said.
Yeah, wonderful. And we do have more questions, but I feel like we've really dove deep into anxiety
Anxiety.
and feeling nervous. And I feel like this could be a great standalone episode on just how to speak English if you feel anxious or nervous. So, do you have anything like any other tips for people who do feel anxious or nervous? I've been speaking the majority of this conversation, but you obviously have more experience than me. So, and you've overcome those feelings of anxiety. If I was to speak Spanish now, if I went to Spain, I probably wouldn't feel that anxious, ordering some food or something. But in a little bit more of a serious situation, I'd feel nervous. But you've actually overcome the anxiety and the nervousness in most situations. So have you got any other practical or psychological tips or advice or anything from your experience?
Mm, maybe only that try to be authentic and be yourself, and not to try to be someone else. Basically, be smarter, be quicker. You can try to be funnier if you want to. It never
Yep.
hurts. But yeah, just try to be yourself, and you're good enough as you are. And yeah, let people know you, who you are, and they will appreciate you. And just let it happen like organically. Just meet new people, talk with people, make friends, and enjoy the process instead of like being afraid of it.
Yeah, totally. What about? I just had this idea now. Well, what about intentionally making a mistake when speaking to someone? Like you're going to say, "I'm going to have this conversation in English now. I'm going to make a mistake. I'll see what happens."
Mm, making a mistake. Um, I can't think of any
Maybe not
purpose
like,
right now.
maybe not intentionally making a mistake, but going in saying, I'm going to have this conversation. I'm probably going to make a mistake. Let's just do a social experiment and see what happens afterwards. Do you think that would be a good mind frame to go into some conversations?
Do you mean any like specific mistake, like making a mistake on a purpose, or just
Um,
accepting that you will make mistakes? Because you will definitely make
yeah,
some mistakes.
I think actually intentionally making a mistake might be quite hard, and you'll probably be thinking too much about the grammar and being like, okay, this is what the rule is, but I need to make a mistake. So maybe that's not a good idea. But maybe, yeah, just having a little conversation with yourself beforehand, saying, it's very likely I will. Let's see what happens. I accept the outcome and just see what happens. Do you think that's a good mind frame?
I think that there is no other good mind frame really,
Okay.
because I think that it is almost like 100% that you will make at least one mistake. I think it is inevitable, really, to make mistakes, especially if you are a learner. I don't know, maybe there are some like really well spoken native speakers who never make any kind of mistake. Maybe they speak very slowly and think everything that they are going to say beforehand. So maybe there are some individuals who never make mistakes. Who knows? But being a learner, I think that you shouldn't be bothered by making mistakes most of the time. I think that you should just focus on um, what's the expression? Getting your message across, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think that time. If you're anxious about speaking, I think that the time for like worrying about mistakes will come later. I think that it's better to just to overcome the fear and practice, and yeah, continue listening, continue reading if you want to, and just absorb the language, but don't focus on mistakes too much. Just accept that there will be mistakes. Like
Yeah.
no matter what you do, the mistakes will happen anyway.
Yeah. And you can still be charismatic. You can still be likable. You can still be funny. You can still get your message across, even when you have A1 level English. I posted this guy in the community before, but I don't know if you remember him, Anna. He's like a Japanese baseball player, and he moves to the United States, and his English is full of mistakes. He can hardly string a sentence together in English. However, he does it with zero anxiety. Not saying this is the goal, but he just is accepted that he's in America. He doesn't really know English. He's very happy to be there, and he's just being his authentic self. And he's so charismatic and likable just because he's trying and he's happy, and he's just trying to
Mhm.
get his ideas across, and he's great. I know it's not as easy as that, and most people won't naturally feel as calm and confident as he does, but he's proof that you don't need perfect English. You don't need to be able to speak without making mistakes to get your ideas across and also be liked by people, which, is fundamentally what we want in most situations is get our message
Yeah,
across.
to
They don't dislike us. That's kind of all we're aiming for in most
universal
conversations. Yeah.
universal goal. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I can't think of anything else apart from practice, exposure, um, and being compassionate to yourself. So I'm pretty happy to wrap up there, unless you have anything else, Anna.
So, well, I have like six, seven other questions, but yes,
Okay, yeah, we
I
might be
think
here
that
for 4 hours if we go through them. So maybe
can
we
wrap
leave
it
it
down.
there and we revisit those in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay,
That's,
perfect. Well, thank you all for listening. Hopefully you found it useful, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
see you soon. Bye bye.